Hello, and welcome to the 2022 Urban Angel Awards Gala, presented by New York Theological Seminary. This virtual event celebrates 40 years of redeeming lives, restoring hope, and reclaiming power. Featuring President Reverend Dr. Lakeisha Walrond and these amazing special guests. Now introducing our host, artist, and cultural ambassador, Tony Blackman.
Welcome to the New York Theological Seminary 2022 Urban Angel Awards pre-gala event. I'm your host, Tony Blackman, and I couldn't be more thrilled, more excited, and more honored to be here. Tonight's virtual event is the precursor to the in-person 2022 Urban Angel Awards Gala, which will be held Thursday, June 2nd at the magnificent Capitale. Our spotlight will shine on Margaret Grossman, David Chokshi, Susan Shah, DeRay McKeeson, and Karen Scott. Each of these worthy honorees has done their part to address social justice by exemplifying exactly what the New York Theological Seminary, or NYTS, stands for: redeeming lives, restoring hope, reclaiming humanity, rebuilding strength, and rescuing humanity. You don't want to miss it. And the tickets are already on sale. Right now, your attendance would be so much appreciated, and a portion of the monies will be raised to support an endowment at a women's correctional facility for the first ever master's degree program. At NYTS, as we celebrate 40 years of Audacity, tonight's theme falls right in line with that sentiment: Audacity in motion, decarcerating the mind. And tonight's panel of dynamic thought leaders are here to help us navigate this time, this theme, utilizing three key conversations about social justice for people, especially women who have been incarcerated or who once were. Our distinguished panel of guests are Reverend Sharon White Harrigan, New York Theological Seminary's Executive Director; Tina Luongo, Chief Attorney and Criminal Defense Practice; Paula Johnson, Professor of Law and a Director of the Cold Case Justice Initiative; Akeem Browder, Executive Director of the Khalif Browder Foundation; Latrice Walker, New York State Assemblywoman, District 55 in Brooklyn; Reverend Dr. Willie Francois III, Professor and Director of Master of Professional Studies at Sing Sing Correctional Facility; Karen York, Executive Director of Women's Prisons Association; and finally, Susie Salami, let me get that pronunciation correct, Director of Social Work at the Innocence Project. So I know, after hearing this amazing list, this power-packed list of names and titles, I feel like maybe we should be shouting out the Avengers and telling them to assemble. And I'm sure that each of them is a superhero in their own right to many, many people whose lives they impact each and every day. But before we dive right into our first conversation, please help me welcome Lakeisha, Reverend Dr. Lakeisha Walrond.
Thank you, Tony, and good evening, everyone. What an amazing night, and we are in for some great conversation. As president of New York Theological Seminary, I am thrilled to welcome you tonight to our pre-gala virtual event, and to remind you that it's not too late to get your ticket and reserve your spot for our in-person gala on June 2nd at the Capitale on the Lower East Side. It is going to be an awesome event where we can get outside, dress up, celebrate, dance, enjoy some good food, some good company, and support a great cause. As you may know, New York Theological Seminary has held a Master of Professional Studies program at Sing Sing Correctional Facility for the last 40 years. And in that time, we've graduated over 520 men. And this year, in the fall, we're going to start that same MPS program at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for women to give women that same opportunity to earn a master's degree. So proceeds from our Urban Angels Gala will support both of these programs. And I'm thanking you in advance for your support, for every dollar makes a difference and every donor is a treasured friend. So thank you again for your support. And I look forward to seeing you at the gala on June 2nd. Tickets are limited and you don't want to miss this great event. But tonight, we want to bring to light some necessary conversations about our brothers, our sisters, and our friends who are incarcerated. Our theme is Audacity in Motion, decarcerating the mind, because we believe that change begins with our perceptions and our perspectives. Ultimately, the way we think, and our thoughts influence our language and our actions. So tonight we have 3 thought-provoking conversations to expand our understanding of incarceration. First, we'll discuss the important role that hope plays for someone who is incarcerated. Then we'll take a deep dive into the systemic breakdown of the New York prison system and why and what we need to do to fix it. And finally, we'll address the inner strength, the family love, the community support needed post-incarceration, so that when one of our community members come home, that individual can stay home and live the life that God is calling them to live. These conversations are important. They're not frivolous, but are lifelines that we can use to help someone that we may know, possibly a brother or sister, a mother or father, a daughter, a son, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, or close friend who is currently incarcerated or recently released. Whoever she is, keep believing in her. Keep believing in him. Whoever he is, pray for him, pray for her, and most of all, keep loving them through it all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, I look forward with great anticipation to seeing you at our live event on June 2nd. God bless you. Now, Tony, let's get these conversations started. Take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Reverend. So let's get right to it. Here to help lead the conversation, how hope can show up for women on the inside, are Sharon White Harrigan, whose correct title is Executive Director of the Women's Community Justice Association, and Tina Luongo. Please, thank you so much for being here. I would like to start posing a question to each of you. And yeah. All right. How are you? Tina, I'm pronouncing your name correctly, right?
Good evening. Hello. Hello to both of you. So happy to be here.
Yes, yes. Okay, so are you guys ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
We're ready.
Absolutely.
So my mind is blown by folks who do the work and the ability to have such a big heart and a big brain and big vision. And so this question is about hope, right? What role does hope play in each of your lives and in your careers? And why is hope important? And I know that's a big question, especially right now with everything going on in the world.
Yeah.
Even us hope leaders, like we're hope dealers in the work that we do. Can be a challenge. So what role does it play in your life?
Well, first, I want to say it's an honor and a privilege to be here. I am especially excited to be with my co-panelist, Tina. Always an honor and a privilege. And Tony, thank you.
Yeah.
That is a loaded question. And so I operate from both ends of the spectrum because not only, do I do the work and I lead an organization, but I am also formerly incarcerated. So, hope is important because, well, first let me say that hope is weaved in the fabric of my being, right? And it has been always, right? To have hope is to believe, and to believe is to have faith. And to have faith, even the size of a mustard seed, right? You know that nothing is impossible. And so, plain and simple, to not have hope would be hopeless. Right? And so every day, you hope and you believe that what you're doing is the right thing, or you're on the right track, right? And you make the right decisions, or the better decisions. Hope is important because what else do we have? Right? We all operate in different faiths and in different beliefs, but what else would we have? Right? We would live in a world of complete and utter destruction and depression if we didn't have hope. So I think it's just very important, especially for me, to be in this work, and for who I work with and who I work for, and that we continue to hold on to that hope and belief that one day that things will be better, that the world will operate better, and that we can all live in harmony.
How do you follow the amazing Reverend Sharon? How do you follow that? All of that, right? What has driven me through my career at Legal Aid Society, I started as a public defender in 2002, but prior to that, did gang intervention with young people in New York City. I'm driven by the hope, and sorry, I have my children in the back, so they give me hope for sure. So apologies, but every step of when I was making a decision of where my path goes in work, it was inspired by the hope of the folks I were working with, who inspired me to get into the work more. The young people I worked with in gang prevention who had hope that they had a future. And then when I went to Legal Aid Society, my clients who were facing astronomical challenges, being dragged into the criminal legal system, mostly because of poverty, having hope that I would be able to help them in that moment, but have the larger hope that we can address these systemic issues, right, once and for all. And even now, as we're facing some, hopeless times, particularly as women's bodies are being sort of oppressed more and more, the hope that we saw coming out into the streets, demanding that this, we will not roll back Roe. I think that's what continues to drive my inspiration.
Ooh, then that's very powerful, Tina. To just witness the energy of so many across the board saying, like it's unapologetic, and there's no doubt. I believe in that power as well. I'm wondering, with the work you both do, how can a woman facing incarceration develop, maintain, or possibly regain hope in a situation where it may feel like hopelessness?
So I would say good therapy. Honestly, good therapy, and that they're culturally relatable, right? Because everyone doesn't have those tools. I grew up in a household. My father was a pastor, grew up in church. So I had a different kind of foundation. I grew up on faith. People might have lost their faith, right? People might not have had that. And so it's important that if they don't already have some tools, that they are given tools, right? People need a toolbox to be equipped in order to have hope. So, for women who are facing incarceration, it's you take these steps, right? One by one, to understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you just have to chisel to get there sometimes. So you have to go into that toolbox. You have to learn which tools to use. And I think most importantly is that to understand that trauma is always at the head. Why do we face incarceration besides being targeted as the Black and brown community? But it's also understanding, how did I get here, right? And it's based on trauma. And in order to understand that trauma, you should have some good therapy and counseling, someone that's of sound mind to speak to, to lean on your faith, and to just understand that you're not going to overcome your trauma. Sometimes you have to reconcile with it. There's some trauma you're not going to forget. You're not going to, but you have to reconcile with it. So that's what I would say, is just understand that we have to deal, with our traumas.
What I find when we speak to women who are either held at Rikers pretrial or in the upstate prisons, it's connection. Community brings hope, not being seen, being heard. So the community that is formed from women who are together in incarceration, but the connection to family, community, lawyers, social workers, the outside world, to see them, to not forget, particularly when we're thinking about women who are held hours away or held right here in Astoria, but across a bridge, and who is invisible. And, I think we can't have a conversation about women be incarcerated women without recognizing that yesterday, Mary Yehuda, 31 years old, died while being at Rikers. It has to be that those of us who are out, those of us who are empowered and with the privilege to be advocates, to remember that it isn't just a client, it is a person who needs connection. So making sure we're doing everything we can to keep people connected. And as lawyers and advocates, making sure we're pushing against antiquated policies that take family visitation or family packages away, which is what we're seeing right now with state docs. Fighting transfers of women who are at Rikers but moved to Bedford because that connection to their defense team and their family were broken at a time when it was a critical need. So I think it's visibility, and will always be visibility and investment in services.
Oh, I love that, Tina, and I love the way you frame that, because connection is key, and people need to be seen. Right? We think about children needing to be seen. No, throughout our entire lives, we need to be seen. And they say one of the greatest gifts you can give a person is the gift of acknowledgement and appreciation. I love that, Tina. So I think you kind of led into the next question, which is from a legal perspective. How does legal aid society support hope for the incarcerated? And then also the follow-up question to that is, where do you see the most need?
Look, I think we do at the Legal Aid Society. We have a prisoners' rights project. We have our women's project. We have our exploitation intervention project. We have public defenders across the city and appellate attorneys that are working every day to ensure that anybody who is at Rikers or upstate, that we continue to fight. Because that's the other thing that brings hope, is the recognition that someone's out there hearing you and is going to fight, right? Even if it were a conviction where somebody took a plea and accepted sort of, the acknowledgement of what they had done, the fight to make sure that there's humane treatment, the fight for, and now it's the recognition, sorry about my dog in the background, but the recognition of someone's out there fighting. And what brings most pride to me is that at Legal Aid.
Okay, well, Sharon, Tina, we appreciate you both being here, appreciate you sharing, appreciate the work that you do for our sisters on the inside and for the hope that you bring to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now for everyone that's watching, don't forget that you can purchase your tickets to the Urban Angel Awards Gala. You can purchase them right now. And if you can't attend, maybe you might want to donate a couple of tickets to someone that you love or someone for whom you think the experience might be meaningful. So coming up, we're going to tackle the topic of prison reform. We're going to take it on head on. But first, here are a few videos that we think you will enjoy.
It is my honor and privilege to present these two awards to Mr. Clarence and Mrs. Jerry Drakes with the New York Theological Seminary's 2022 Urban Angel Alumni Appreciation Award. Mr. and Mrs. Drakes are both members of our NYTS Alumni Engagement Council. They are both active in our NYTS Alumni Association, and they are supporters of our mission and vision and the work that we are doing in the community at NYTS. On behalf of New York Theological Seminary, our board, president, faculty, and staff, we honor you both, and we thank you for your contributions to your alma mater and all of the work that you're doing in the world. May God continue to bless you both. God bless.
Greetings, President Walgren, esteemed NYTS Board of Trustees, magnificent and gracious staff, fellow alum, Reverend Cassius, current students, family, and friends. We are honored to receive this prestigious award. Pursuing an award was not our goal. Our support of NYTS is purely an act of gratitude for all that has been given to us. We cannot measure or put a price on the value received from staff, professors, student body, the entire NYTS community.
We're influenced by the NYTS vision of relevant, restorative, and revolutionary work in our community. As stated by John Scully, former president of PepsiCo and Apple, the future belongs to those who see the possibilities before they become obvious. Our vision is building strong, healthy marriages, one marriage at a time. We are well equipped by NYTS to pursue our vision of ministry. We're so grateful for this opportunity to continue supporting the NYTS mission.
We are grateful.
Leadership, justice, mentorship, spirituality, innovation. These are just a few of the touchstones that are incarnated, that come to life because of the work that New York Theological Seminary does at Sing Sing Correctional Facility. For 40 years, since 1982, we have operated the only master's program in a New York State prison. It is one of the first of its kind and one of the only throughout all theological education in the United States. For 40 years, we have partnered, come alongside men who are incarcerated in the state of New York to build power, to reimagine their lives, to add to the larger ongoing movements of decarceration. For 40 years, we're able to boast the ministry and the work of over 500 alumni. I think about Julio Medina, who was awarded a recognition by a sitting U.S. president for the work of Exodus Transitional Communities. I think about John Ducksworth, who runs the Ending Mass Incarceration Coalition of the state of New York and the region that was founded by Raphael Warnock. I think about George Chachos, a graduate of the MPS program who's now earning a PhD at Yale, or Michael Pass, who earned a PhD and is now a full-time faculty member at an HBCU. New York Theological Seminary, through the Master of Professional Studies program, is the only seminary that is contributing on a curricular basis to the movement to end mass incarceration, the abolitionist movement, the decarceration movement. That is the work that we have done for 40 years, and we're looking forward to the fall, where we have several events planned, where we're able to name this work out loud and to declare that there's no better place to invest to end mass incarceration and create faith and thought leaders other than New York Theological Seminary.
Yes, yes. Welcome back to the New York Theological Seminary's Urban Angel Awards pre-gala event. Earlier, I mentioned that a portion of the ticket sales to the in-person gala on June 2nd will be utilized to support an endowment for the first ever master's degree program at a women's correctional facility. There will also be an auction to help support this endeavor as well. And some of the auction items are collector's pieces by John Ellien, Khalid Thompson, and Kaya Sky Clary, dinner with Dr. Walrand and Lakeisha Walrand, a 6-night stay at the Marriott Grand Vista Resort in Orlando, Florida, and an autographed book by Dave Essel Manning and Henry Davis, and so much more. These pieces will be displayed live at the auction, but the bidding will start tonight. And we want you to put your bid in. And if you'd like to own one of these items, make it a good one. Please log on for more info so that you can see how to place your bid. Now, let's keep this conversation going. So as an activist, this next topic is really, really close to my heart. Here to talk about what prison reform needs in order to take place in New York State, let us welcome Professor of Law Paula Johnson, activist Akeem Browder, and Assemblywoman Latrice Walker. Let's welcome each and every one of them. We want to thank each of you for being here.
Good.
Hi, hello.
Hello, everyone.
We want to thank each of you for being here. And we're going to have a conversation, a compelling and an informative conversation, and to talk about what needs to happen.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad and so grateful to be with you this evening for the work that the New York Theological Seminary is doing, particularly with the focus on women and women's needs and the educational opportunities that your work is going to provide for women. So thank you for inviting me to participate. I know that we want to get right into our conversation. And so I'd like to ask of the two guests we have for this discussion, first for Mr. Browder. And I want to, to preface my question first by extending again condolences on the loss of your brother. At Syracuse University College of Law, we actually have done, a great deal of work looking at your brother's case and invited his attorney to speak with our students here. So we are, very much aware of the circumstances and how hideous they were. So thank you for being here. So I'd like to ask you, With respect to the particular effects of abuses at Rikers Island, can you talk about how they particularly affect women there? And what kinds of changes would be necessary to address the issues regarding the closure of Rikers and how that would be important to the lives of incarcerated women?
Well, first, thank you for having me. Everyone that's listening, please know that the work that we're speaking about requires action afterwards. We can't talk about anything without having something that follows a plan of action. I know that, as a man going into the Department of Corrections in the state of New York, we will face different happenings, like different abuses, different circumstances than women will. And when you go into the prison system, what we know is mental health issues worsen. There are appropriate resources and allocation of funds that allow for mental health services to accurately, especially in the state of New York, to accurately address the many issues, including just stress and fear and being away from loved ones. But when it comes to women, you do have women that have families as well as men, but women are the separation from their children, the substance abuse, as we just heard in the last segment. Mary, and I'm going to botch up her last name, so I don't want to even attempt it. But a 31-year-old woman was just found dead on Rikers, and to drug abuse, to overdose. How does that happen in a place that says they have care, custody, and control? Now, to address, because I know this is a two-part question, and I want to be quick with it, but I also want to be thorough enough to understand. To address issues on Rikers, to get Rikers Island closed, first of all, no changes can be made, at least in this one man's opinion. To make changes to a system that already had more than 100 years, to make appropriate changes, is the very definition of insanity. To do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. The way that we get what we want starts with one, changing laws. To incarcerate people for things that are really just frivolous is what we've been fighting for. Like, to hold people on bail that is a punishment against people that are poor. But really, it's looking at why we are incarcerating instead of looking at solutions. I think everyone in the world, especially in New York, could have a PhD in complainology, if that was a word. But we don't have even enough to, or at least we're not exhibiting enough to have even an associate's degree or a couple of college credits on solutionizing, coming up with a solution. And that solution needs to be followed, like I said in the beginning of this program, with action. How do we act on it?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your response. Now, I'd like to ask Representative Walker, you represent the 55th District, which is largely Brooklyn. And as we know, there's a disproportionate number of the incarcerated population in New York State is from Brooklyn, including women of color. The physical and mental health care needs of the incarcerated population in New York has been notoriously inadequate. And Mr. Browder just spoke about that a moment ago. But with particular regard to women's needs, and this too, if you'll forgive me, is also a two-part question. But the first part of it is, what is the particular impact of COVID-19 pandemic issues on incarcerated women, and what must be done to ensure women's health in relation to the pandemic? And then secondly, with respect to the expected overturning of Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey by the U.S. Supreme Court in the upcoming weeks, what are the implications of such a decision on incarcerated women's reproductive rights and broader health care needs?
Well, I will say first, thank you so much for having me. And I do want to pay homage to the work of Akeem Browder on behalf of his brother, which was the seminal sort of case which brought about my fight for bail reform. And our success in bail reform, our collective success in bail reform, was really through your efforts and your advocacy, and through the efforts of so many people who I'm sure who are watching this, and of course the New York Theological Seminary as well. We've been fighting against a lot of the rollbacks that folk have been trying to do as we've moved forward with respect to raise the age, as well as discovery reform, which are all interconnected with about issues that are women's issues. And I'll say that the answer, Professor Johnson, that women's issues outside of those prison walls are the same issues inside of those prison walls, because at the end of the day, we all still have the same uterus, different, but the same. And, I think about my visits to Rosem Singer or to Bedford Hills, or, just talking to women in our community. The lack of access that they were having to getting sanitary napkins and tampons was outrageous. The lack of a facility that is clean and sanitary to be able to take care of our personal bodies was woefully inadequate, if it was even made available, particularly if any of those women were on solitary confinement. And then, of course, access to gynecologists is something that's far and few in between in our communities, as well as, of course, within our criminal justice facilities. And access to adequate instrumentality and equipment is not there. Access to up-to-date sonogram systems. As we know, most of the people who are behind bars, as you mentioned, are Black and brown women. And as a Black woman, I know that what we deal with respect to fibroids, and the thing that most people have been trying to do to us outside and inside is let's do where they remove your whole entire uterus in order to address the fibroids, as opposed to shrinking them or providing the adequate level of medical care to be able to address those particular issues. And don't forget the fact that we were just able to get to a point where women were no longer shackled as they are given birth. And we've seen historically, since slavery up through this time, that there's this perception that Black women has this superpower. We might be super women, but we're not superhuman. And our level of tolerancy to pain is the same as every other woman. And the way that we're being treated to be shackled, or even to be, in that facility, period, when you're having one of the most beautiful experiences of your life. There's a saying that the closest that a woman will get to death is childbirth. And so we believe, of course, as a woman, that is an experience of utmost care and attention, and it should be given the level of attention that it deserves. And so we will continue to push as women of color of the New York State Association of Black and Puerto Rican and Hispanic Legislators, Inc., to raise awareness around women's issues with respect to reproductive health. When we codify Roe versus Wade in the Assembly, it applies to women equally, whether they are behind bars or not. And then, of course, ultimately, the continuum of care is also as important, which is why we are fighting very hard, working with the Women's Prison Association and other groups in order to build reentry housing so that we can reunite our mothers back with their children. Because mental health, I have to leave my daughter 3 days a week to go to Albany. And to hear her crying on the phone, or to have to do Zoom homework with me on FaceTime and her on Zoom, or the feeling that I feel each and every time I get on 87 and I drive up that road, leaving my child behind, it's only a modicum of time compared to the length of time so many of our babies are away from their mothers, and then the length of space being away, and taking away the buses and then putting the buses back. I mean, forget it. It's a whole system of scenarios that we as women need to get control around and ratchet up our advocacy in furtherance of.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your response as well. Let me ask a question to both of you then, and that is, in light of what you've just discussed, what do you consider to be among the paramount responses, whether it's legal or policy making or activism or all of those things, in terms of holding people and institutions accountable for the kinds of either neglect, willful or just dereliction of duty, so that the kinds of care, the recognition of women's rights will occur based on what we've just described.
So I'll start by saying that we have a very admirable, in my opinion, criminal justice agenda in the New York State Legislature. So I'll start with talking about elder parole. There are men and women who are behind bars just far too long. Quite frankly, there have been more men and women who have died behind bars during that than who died during the 300 years when the death penalty was on the books in New York State. And so we have to have a mechanism where those individuals are released and they are able to be home with their families. They have paid their debt to society and they need to be brought out. Of course, the restoration of voting rights, because most people who are elected are only as good as their most recent election. And those 30,000 people, while we did provide access to the vote and the franchise to people who are presently on parole, we need to have a restoration of voting rights for people who are presently incarcerated so that their voices can be heard. Of course, clean slate is something that we need to do so that people won't live in perpetual punishment, economic punishment. After you've paid your dues behind bars, why should you have to keep living it where you can't get access to jobs and you can't get access to housing? Then we need to eliminate mandatory minimums. And again, they're not discriminatory based on women or men, but for the women who were in there, we have to get rid of the second and third strikes. Like it has no place here. And of course, I have a bill, the second look bill, and it should be an opportunity for a release mechanism through a hearing after an individual has served a certain amount of time. If you can show that rehabilitation has been your charge and you've done everything it is in your power, like Judith, who we went and was able to get out of Bedford Hills and back into our community. And lastly, the Earn Time Act. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but Akeem, I guess you take it away.
Okay, thank you for that. Akeem?
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of laws and legislation that needs to be changed, as Mr. Latrice Walker just outlined. There's people currently suffering on Rikers, in jails, in prisons across the state of New York, currently at the moment. One, solitary confinement. Why do we have to continue talking about this? Solitary confinement is inhumane, and why are we even going back to what we did to Khalif? But on top of that, accurate information. The public is not informed. People think that Rikers is still closed, or is still closing, or is closed, and it's still up in the air. And you have elected officials that want it to stay open because they need it, they say. No, accurate information, even where the people on Rikers, the family members don't even know what's going on. We have families calling the Khalif Brother Foundation nonstop, daily, 6 times a day, finding out that their kid was slashed today and they didn't know, or their kid was slashed last week and they don't know anything. We have so much inaccuracy in information, but the federal monitor that was placed on Rikers at the beginning of this year up until March already came back and, or by March, came back and let it be known that this place is beyond repair, beyond reproach. it should be shut down immediately. But the federal government wants to take it over. Now, however, get it out the hands of COBA, because realistically, they're the ones that's been manipulating and actually taking advantage of the fact that they had a 100-year contract. Get it away from them. Put it over into another hand, or just shut it down, which is what the people of New York stated. We spend way too much money on incarcerating people when we could put more than 4 people, with the amount of people, 550,000 per person in Rikers per year. We could be putting at least four or 5 people through college. Why aren't we actually talking about the things that impact not just people incarcerated, but the family members on the streets, as well as the citizens that's paying taxes? We have to think of everything and put it to the people that is not confusing them, and they're just turning away because it's so much information and then so much back talk. That's how we get people that have problems with the bail bill. The bail bill is not the issue. The issue is not following the laws that we've passed and actually doing it in the way that they want to do it, so it can make it seem like our bills are or the bill is the problem. No, it's the implementation.
Right. And see, the thing that they don't like about bail is that bail is the gatekeeper to prison, right? It's where they're able to utilize bail as a tool to coerce a person into a plea, as opposed to going through a court where they can, be vindicated from the crimes that they are being accused of, which is why we have so many people who are incarcerated wrongfully. And I think that, they talk about a lot about discretion and what they want to give more discretion to judges to lock more people up. And we're saying we gave judges tools to give people access to mental health, to give people access to drug treatment, to give them access to housing. And what we want to do is give them the discretion to be able to say, look, prison worked, I guess, whatever. The broken system, which is not really broken because it was meant to break us down, not to be a broken system. But whatever it is, and it did, it worked. We just did 22 in this year's budget. We gave $5 million for the tuition assistance program for people to go back to college. We can have people with college degrees coming out. Give them an opportunity. Use the discretion. Give the judges the discretion to say, you have done your time. You have done your job here. And we want you to come back out into the community. And these are the things that people are fighting.
How about allocating funds to the community so people don't have to go to jail because they're committing small crimes? I mean,
well, that would be a novel idea, wouldn't it?
We don't need $5 million in prison. Put the $5 million in a community.
But then how are they going to take care of their upstate communities? Right? Their communities are built around this. They retire off of this. They send their own children to college based on the backs and the decapitation of our community, so that their communities can flourish. But we are taking back everything that the devil stole from us.
And
thank you so much.
I am so appreciative of both of you for being as informative as you have been. Thank you so much. And for both of your work on these issues from the respective places where you are addressing this is very helpful for all of us to know what efforts are being waged along these lines. And I'm sure that we'll continue to have these discussions and to follow the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. And before we close this out, let me just say, it has been a privilege and a pleasure to be with you. And would everyone please remember the families and the communities in Buffalo, New York, who have lost, so many and so much so quickly and so unnecessarily. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
It is with great pleasure to present Dr. In-Suk Lee with the New York Theological Seminary 2022 Urban Angel Faculty Appreciation Award. Dr. Lee has embodied the core mission and vision of this institution. On behalf of NYTS, President Walwyn, our board, faculty, and staff, Dr. Lee, we honor you. Thank you for being an angel among us.
To all present in the event of NYTS pre-Gala celebration. I'm extremely humbled and honored to be receiving 2022 Faculty Appreciation Award. The news was quite a surprise to me, because NYTS has many excellent and committed faculty members. Oh, yeah, yes, we do. I'd like to give a special thank to our President, Wal Rand, and Dean Henry for their audacious leadership. Esteemed colleagues, faculty, and staff members for their generosity. Board of Trustees for their continuous support. And my friends, all students, for their passion for learning. NYTS has been a special and sacred place where I can meet and engage with many wonderful people. Especially, it is so inspiring to journey together with the students from culturally and religiously diverse backgrounds in our mutual teaching, learning, growing, empowering, and fulfilling God's calling together. So it is my privilege to say that the unique history of NYTS will continue in a very meaningful way with all of you. And most importantly, in the presence and guidance of the Holy Spirit. Thank you.
We are excited at NYTS to expand our MPS program to a women's facility. Bedford Hills is the ripe place for us to do the work of journeying with women as they build power, as they assert their humanity in what is really a dehumanizing violence situation. The women at Bedford Hills will now have what 520 men have had at Sing Sing. And that's an opportunity to vent their creativity, an opportunity to focus their entrepreneurial energies, an opportunity for them to demonstrate the expansiveness of their intellect and their brilliance that they organically have. And so I'm excited about this opportunity we have after 40 years of operating in a men's facility to now operate in a women's facility where we get to now see mothers and partners and wives think about their lives in ways that are justice-centered, in ways that are community-oriented, and in ways that say that we can make a difference and change what prisons look like and feel like. And so offering an education is the least of what we do. Offering a degree is the bare minimum of what we're doing at Bedford Hills. We are actually preparing faith and thought leaders in prison who will one day determine what prisons look like or if there will be prisons, right? And so I'm excited about this opportunity we have to prepare women to be on the front line of ending mass incarceration in New York and beyond.
I'm Tony Blackman, and you're watching the New York Theological Seminary's Urban Angel Awards pre-gala virtual event. So that's what we're here for. And just a quick reminder that the in-person gala, the tickets are on sale now. And the honorees are Margaret Grossman, David Chokshi, Susan Shah, DeRay McKeeson, and Karen Scott. And you can log on to nytsurbanangel.org to find out more about these extraordinary humanitarians. You can also log on to find out how to place your bid for the auction. Now, no gala would be complete without an amazing musical performance. And our next guest, she lives up to that description. She's a multiple Stellar Award winner, a Dove Award nominated gospel artist, and former featured singer of Richard Smallwood and Vision. So here to sing their gospel classic, Angels Are Watching Over Us, is Maurette Brown Clark. Incredible.
Thank you so much for having me. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here. To your president, Dr. Walgren, thank you so much. To all the advisors and teachers and students, we applaud you on today. Angels. Through danger seen and unseen, there's protection all around. Under the refuge of God's wings, security is found. For there are angels watching you to keep you in all of your ways, keeping you from stumbling. So don't be afraid. God's appointed angels watching over me. Angels watching over me. Unseen hands guiding me through my storm and through my rain. Oh, healing hands holding me through the darkness of my pain. Wings of love encamped around me, so I will not fear, for I can feel the presence hovering near. Nothing but angels watching over me. Yes, angels watching over me all night and all day. I got me some angels watching over me, my Lord, all night and all day. I got me some angels watching over me. Hey, while I sleep, they're all night and all day, all day. They're watching over me, my Lord, all night and all day. Angels watching over me. Angels watching over me. I get excited about my angels watching over me. Angels watching over me. Thank you, God, for my angels watching over me. Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Lord. Hey, I got angels, and you got angels watching. They're watching, they're watching, they're watching over you. Yes, I thank you, God, for my angels. I thank you, Lord, for my angels. I don't deserve my angels, but you keep on sending me angels. I thank you. Bless your name, Jesus. Hallelujah, hallelujah. God bless you.
Yeah. Yes. Angels watching over me. I get excited because I know my angels are watching over me. Our angels are watching over all of us. That was beautiful. Thank you, Maurette Brown Clark. That was just wonderful. It's one of my favorite songs. It's reminding us that we are protected. In this work that we do, we are protected. In these spaces where we have to dig deep for hope, we are protected. We are covered. And now it's time for our final conversation. So please welcome Sharon White Harrigan, Reverend Dr. Willie Francois III, Karen York, and Susie Salami. They're going to be here to help us unpack how to restore and reclaim your life after prison. All right. So how to restore and reclaim your life after prison. Sharon, if you don't mind, I would love to start with you.
How did I know? I knew you were going to start with me.
Yes, Lord.
I just want to say hello to my co-panelists. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. How do you begin to reclaim your life? I would say that you would start with remembering that it is about self-care. I think that women, that as we come home, we are nurturers, we're caregivers. The first thing we think about is, oh, I got to get my children. I got to take care of my aging mom. I got to do all of these things. So I think number one is remembering that taking care of ourselves is taking care of other people. The other thing is building a foundation, right? And I think it starts with that reentry upon entry. So by the time you do have to go through your process, that you have some type of plan in place. Even if it's you don't follow it to the wire, you need some type of template coming out and building community. Like Tina said in our conversation in the beginning, that building you have to connect the dots. Find that community of people, find your peers, right? And you come out and also understand what your needs are. We know the basics. We know it's housing, we know it's employment, we know it's all those things. But I think the one thing that we do kind of misstep in is understanding that our trauma doesn't get treated. We don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about, speaking with people to help reconcile all that you've been through, right? Not only just how you got to be incarcerated, but your incarceration, and that is the driver to a lot of things. So I think that, and I'm going to let others come in, but I think that you got to start with that as you begin to reclaim your life.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sharon, for getting us started and for just the impacting work that you do in the community that comes from a very, very deep spiritual, sacred place, and we do appreciate that. Susie, I want to ask you a question. You are the director of social work for the Innocence Project, and when I think about the work of the Innocence Project, which is so fundamental to protecting our democracy, for bringing some level of integrity to the way that our carceral system works. But when I think about the work of your organization, I think about a quote that James Baldwin says that sometimes it's the law that's guilty. This is not to say that everybody in prison is innocent, but it is to say that sometimes the law is more criminal than anything people have done in prison. I'm particularly interested because you journey with people who've been exonerated from crimes. You journey with the innocent who have experienced this particular form of violence, this particular form of carceral exploitation and subjugation. And so I'm interested in you talking with us tonight about what does it mean to journey with people who've been exonerated, and how pervasive is wrongful conviction in this country?
Thanks for having me. I think the first question is, who wrote the law, right? So if we think about, let's go back in time and look at the systems in place and how they interplay with each other to create the system we have today with the enormous amount of people of color, specifically Black people of color, in this unjust system, right? So I think that's the first comment I just wanted to make. To journey with people who've been exonerated, frankly, anyone who's been in prison, innocent or not, I want to say that not everybody we work with ends up being exonerated because of the system itself, right? It doesn't allow for that. Sure. But most of our clients are. And it's amazing. How do you work with anyone who's gone through this experience? Usually it's 20, 30, sometimes 40 years of wrongful imprisonment. And again, you can say no one should be imprisoned. But here specifically, we always have DNA evidence to prove that they did not do this crime. And in fact, in most cases, especially with women, there was no crime in the first place, right? So we can look at that and how sexism plays into that. So how do you deal and heal with someone who was inside of somewhere they shouldn't have been in the first place, committed of a crime they did not do, and have them trust again, right? We talked about, Reverend talked about people coming out and finding community. That's a very specific niche population, right? People who have actually been exonerated. It's very few people, about 3,000 in the last 3 decades. And only about 286 women. So there's lots to play in there if you look at the numbers and the identities of the people who've been exonerated. But, people who have had to live in a state of hypervigilance and in constant trauma for 30, 40 decades, to come out again, I always call it a thawing out process, right? People have to live with their body in a state of shock, in a state of being armed at all moments, not knowing where safety can be found at all, right? So how do you come out and just be free, right? In all ways that you want to be free. So it's a long, long process. Housing is one thing that you have to do right away. And we are lucky enough that we're able to provide housing for people we work with in that first year out of life. We call it sort of a bridge. But mental health treatment, I mean, there's no way you come out of that without suffering some form of PTSD at the very least, right? And we don't even know what happened to begin with that put you in a position where people, violated your vulnerabilities, right? And the system took you and locked you away without any proper representation. That's what happened most of the time. So, it's a very long journey. I don't want to take up too much time. But the housing, the feeling of safety that comes with community, but with people who understand you, frankly, like telephones, right? So they can communicate with people. Understanding technology has changed over the last 30 years. And medical care. Most of our people come out, they did not see a dentist or anyone who cared about their smile for 30, 40 years. And so one of the things we try to do is get people to smile again and get people to be proud of their smile. So there's all these holistic ways we look at people's journey once they leave. And it really is this rebirth and this restoring of their freedom that we try to support.
I love it. That's powerful. Karen, you're the executive director of Women's Prison Association, and I'm really interested. So we know, and it hasn't been said here explicitly, but we know that America is carceral capital of the world, right? We know that 4 or 5% of global population, a quarter of the world's prison population, right? That's reprehensible, right? Carla Shed talks about this as a carceral continuum, which is sort of different from a pipeline. And I understand the pipeline language, but there's something to say about we're really all trapped in a carceral continuum because there really aren't very many American institutions that aren't punitive, that don't major in deciding who winners and losers are. So Karen, can you help us get a picture of what's distinct about incarceration and reentry for women, given the patriarchal, racist, and capitalist underpinnings of what it means to be in America?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, first, I want to thank you. And I want to extend a welcome and hello to my fellow guests, Reverend Sharon. Hey. So I'm new to Women's Prison Association. I'm also new to New York. I'm here from Baltimore, where I did a lot of the same work in Baltimore. And I'm very excited to be here leading WPA and focusing on gender-specific programming. I want to answer your question by starting off with a quote. You referenced a James Baldwin quote, so I'm going to take it there. Today is the birthday of Brother Malcolm X. And years ago, James Baldwin, in speaking about Brother Malcolm, he spoke some words that a lot of folks didn't understand, except folks really in the community. What he was trying to explain about Brother Malcolm is that why people feared him, while he was so feared, while it was so easy to say that he was just anti-everything, right? Was the care and the love that he had for his community. It was so strong, it was so deep, that what he cared about the most was, I want you to be just as angry, just as upset, just as motivated as I am, so that you can do what needs to be done to change what our community looks like. And I bring that up because for years we've been talking about criminal justice reform. We've been talking about how America is the most incarcerated nation in the world, how we're punitive and almost everything we do when it comes to our carceral state. There are a number of examples that show that we need changes all the way from pretrial all the way to post-conviction, right? There is a plethora of data to show that the experience is not a monolith, right? So I'm thrilled to hear that we're finally starting to center the needs and the concerns and even the different opportunities for women and individuals who identify as women. But I'm also very nervous that we're becoming desensitized to it, that it's become, criminal justice reform is becoming a bit cliche. Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. And what we're losing is that piece about hope and care and really ensuring that people are whole. Right. I come from a space of, wanting to ensure that folks who are coming home, that they're connected with housing and employment and getting in training programs and all of these things. But what we need to make sure that we are crystal clear about is the fact that there are so many individuals who are coming home that they just not ready for that yet. And that is okay. Yeah. That is okay. But because we are so focused on ensuring that we're correcting somebody, and then once we feel that you are corrected and we've let you home, now you're supposed to go off and be great. You're supposed to be housed, you're supposed to get a job, and it's supposed to be easy for you. And so and thinking about what's about usually that's my dog, but usually, and thinking about what's so distinct about our systems, right? We usually talk about the punitive nature of it. Previous panelists talked about the different experiences of women behind the fence, whether it's access to sanitary napkins, or whether it's just shackling while you're in labor. So we're used to talking about all of those things, but we're not talking about what we call the soft skills, right? What it means for, a woman who is coming back and I can't think about a job right now. Like Reverend Sharon said, I need to get my kids back. But even in getting my kids back, what does that mean? Because I still got to go before this judge to make my case about why I should have my kids back, and dealing with that stigma that does exist, where you will have judicial officers that will look at women in a different way. Like, how could you? You're a mother. And so in addition to figuring out, how can we get them connected with all of these important supports and services and the like, we also got to think about what does it take to ensure that they are even ready to receive what they think that they are ready for right now. And that means kind of just letting them chart their own course. And I know, like, whole and hope and all of that, it sounds like, root causes, let's get to, we want to actually see some things that'll result in dollars and cents. But I mean, at the end of the day, ensuring that someone is whole, that's going to ensure that they are a good employee. If you don't know where you laying your head at night, if you're not sure about whether or not your kids are okay, how are you going to show up at work and be successful? Sure. How are you going to actually be sure that you can keep up with your bills and pay your rent and do all of these things? So all these expectations that we impose on our women, and then they internalize them and self-impose them on themselves. I mean, we're almost forcing them to go through another vicious cycle that they will never get out. And quite honestly, we don't have any solutions for.
And can I add to that?
Well,
because
sure.
I think it's important that we say out loud that women are the most underrepresented, overlooked, and under-acknowledged people that they are, right? Going into the system, we have been beaten, battered, traumatized, abused, misused, and so coming out, I mean, we know that there's nothing correctional about the Department of Corrections, city, state, doesn't matter, right? And coming out still, they don't have anything, especially for Black women, right? Black women. Black men is just a step ahead of Black women. You go to a men's prison, you see women in the visitor room. You go to a woman's prison, you see women in the visitor room. But what we don't see is people taking care of the core root of the community, which is women. We don't get taken care of. And I'm telling y'all from experience, I am formerly incarcerated. I served over a year in Rikers collectively and over a decade in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. And I came out, and if it wasn't for the foundation I had growing up as a child, I would be lost, right? And turned out in this world right now. And it's unfortunate because there isn't anything really to treat. And I have to keep going back to this, that the traumas that women have endured from childhood, and if not from that, young adulthood, incarceration, relationships, you name it. We hold the word. Every day we use the word resilient. Why? That's supposed to be a special word, but it's an everyday word because we have to muster up all the strength that we have to get through day by day. And it just seems like no one puts enough energy into the women who are the heart and the pulse of the community.
No, this is powerful to name because for so long, the growth of women, non-white or white, has really been obscured and been folded into this larger narrative about men being incarcerated. And so while there's nothing new about women being over incarcerated, but there is a sense that there is a little more attention that we pay to women's issues as it relates to incarceration. Karen said something that was important that I obviously have to catch myself as well, because it's so easy to talk about incarcerating Black bodies, incarcerating women's bodies. And as somebody who attempts to do enfleshed, embodied theology, making sure that the body is sacred, that we understand the value of the body, it is a sense in having that conversation that we miss that these bodies are actually lives, right? That these are people with relationships, these are people with dreams, these are people with very real skills, entrepreneurial creativity, like all of that. And sometimes the way we talk, even those of us who are allies, who are abolitionists, some of our language sometimes makes us numb to the fact that we're actually talking about living people who are in context of death and dehumanization. I know we have to go, but I want to say this. We are starting a program at Bedford Hills. It will be the first master's degree program at a women's facility in New York State. And we're pretty sure that we are actually not just beating New York State to this, but we're actually beating the rest of the country to this. Can each of you say a word? Can each of you say a word about what it could mean what it could mean for the movement of decarceration, for the movement of abolition, that you have women in New York State who will have earned master's degrees looking at justice, thinking about faith leadership, thinking about what it means to care for community and build community, program and project development. Like, what does that mean for the movement when you have impacted women who are now going to come home one day, which we thank God for, once they get acclimated and things are, and where they're ready to fight the fight, they can actually determine what prisons look like, or if there even are prisons moving forward. Like, what kind of hope exists with this program coming to Bedford Hills?
I think this is, all the adjectives come to mind, right? But I'm just going to go with game changer, right? This really is a game changer because, think about it. Years ago, we were trying to convince folks to just ban the box on college applications, right? We were trying to convince folks, right? The same folks that were like, education is the ticket out of poverty, except for y'all, right? So we were just having those, and now we're talking about a master's program for women, right? Game changers in the city of New York. What, to incarcerate one woman, we spending over $500,000? to keep a woman behind the fence, right? Like, just imagine what those dollars could be used for to educate, what did you say, a future faith or thought leader, right? The individuals who are actually going to determine not just what's happening with our carceral system, but what's happening with our educational system, what our new workforce is going to look like, right? Like all of these different dynamics that don't got nothing to do with incarceration, but has everything to do with what their lives should look like had it not been for that thing that's jail or correctional facility. So this is a game changer in so many ways that I think we tend to understandably couch it solely within the education is going to lead to employment, and that means that more folks are going to get jobs and you're going to have more folks with more degrees. But think about if you the first one in your family to have a master's and you were the one that the family was talking about because you was locked up.
Game change.
Game changing. It's a beautiful thing.
I love it. Susie?
I mean, I think it's empowerment through investment, right? It helps people feel seen and in a positive way and recognized and given a tool set so that they can thrive once they're out, right? It's one of the many things that they need to be given and invested in.
Good. Sharon?
They done said it, but I'm going to say, Black women, faith, education, them not ready yet, right? The world is not ready yet, because I'm going to tell you, as a woman who part of my education started in Bedford Hills and I have a master's degree, I'm going to tell you, it opens up so many doors. There won't be any recidivism. There won't be anything. The world won't be ready for what's about to come. It is a game changer, right? It is empowering. It is uplifting. And I'm going to tell you right now that when the women are come out armed, right, not only solid and standing and grounded in their faith, and they got that specific tools and education, watch out. That's all I'm going to say. Them not ready yet.
I'm with Sharon, because when I think about American history, the only force that has ever changed this country has been brilliant Black women of faith. That's the only thing that's ever changed this country, right? So listen, Sharon, thank you. Karen, thank you. Susie, thank you all for being with us. And we look forward to tapping into all of your creativity and ingenuity once we get everything standing up at Bedford Hills. And you know, we definitely need to keep you all in the loop as we do that work of shaping this democracy and making sure that lives are valued and have the dignity that's inherent to them. Thank you.
But can we just give it up for New York Theological Seminary for this? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm ready to preach. I'm telling you, you have no idea what y'all awesome. We serve an awesome God.
Yes,
That's
we do.
it. That's
yes,
it.
We do. Yes,
That's
we do.
it.
Amen.
NYTS.
My pleasure to present Santea Briggs with New York Theological Seminary's 2022 Urban Angel Staff Appreciation Award. Santea has consistently given above and beyond for NYTS over the past few years. As an NYTS alum herself, Santea has embodied the core mission and vision of this institution as a faith and thought leader doing relevant, restorative, and revolutionary work with young people and the LGBTQIA+ community. On behalf of NYTS, our board, President Walren, faculty and staff, Santea, we honor you. Thank you for being an angel among us.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you to President Walren. Thank you to the Board of Trustees. Thank you to the faculty. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to all the supporters of New York Theological Seminary and all the attendees this evening. This night would not happen without you. New York Theological Seminary would not happen without you. And thank you to my staff members. Thank you to the executive team. thank you to anyone that was part of the process of selecting me for this award. It is a great honor. I'm extremely grateful, and I receive it with deep humility. We all just try to do our best when we come to work. We put our heart into our work. You know, working for New York Theological Seminary is a ministry. It is a passion. It allows you to use your gifts, and I'm just grateful to be in a space where I can use my gifts, and I can be also work with people who are in the same line of belief about making a world that is better and that is greater, that brings out the best in all of us. So thank you for this award. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for acknowledging me. And I acknowledge you. I don't receive this award alone. I receive it with all my colleagues, my comrades, because we are in this work together. And anything I do would not be possible without all of you. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you.
The truth is, a gift of any amount will help us continue to cultivate faith and thought leaders to engage in relevant, restorative, and revolutionary work in urban areas for this urgent moment. Please consider supporting New York Theological Seminary today. Thank you for your faithfulness, and we pray blessings upon you and your family during this season of remembrance and celebration. God bless you.
I don't know about you all, but I am moved and inspired. I hope that Pastor Willie, Dr. Francois does not mind. I've got to thank Susie, Sharon, and Karen once again for being so honest and authentic and unfiltered. So many insights and information has been shared tonight. And I really believe that these kinds of conversations are the types of conversations that will not only change lives, but save lives and change our world and make it a better place. Whew. So as I catch my breath, maybe we can take a moment to watch a video and stroll down New York Theological Seminary's alumni memory lane. Check this out.
Are you ready? Join New York Theological Seminary June 2nd at 6 p.m. for the 2022 Urban Angel Awards Gala. Trust us, you don't want to miss this. This event celebrates 40 years of redeeming lives, restoring hope, and reclaiming power. Featuring President Reverend Dr. Lakeisha Walren and these amazing special guests. Thursday, June 2nd at 6 p.m. at the Capitol Event Space. Get tickets now at nyts.edu. Trust us.
All right. I hope you have enjoyed this Urban Angel Awards pre-gala event as much as I have, as much as we have. The speakers were incredible. Each one brought fire. And we want to give a huge and heartfelt thank you to each and every one of them. I learned a lot about the prison system, and I hope that you all did too. And we learned about how it affects incarcerated women. And now I'm inspired to get out there and do my part. And we want you to do your part to help bring awareness and change. And go to the NYTS urbanangels.org website to find out how you can make a bid on the auction items and how you can get your tickets. And remember, If you can't make it on June 2nd in New York City for the in-person gala, you can buy tickets for someone else. You'll be supporting the cause and supporting the movement. Check out the discount code right at the bottom of the screen. We also want to thank you, Maurette Brown Clark, for that performance. That song really touched me in a very profound way, and I know that it moved other listeners. We want to send out love and hugs and thank yous to the New York Theological Seminary. I want to thank NYTS for inviting me to be a host. And of course, thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in. None of this will be possible without you. I'm going to say goodbye for now. But before that, remind you to go to nytsurbanangels.org because a portion of the proceeds will support the first ever master's degree at a women's correctional facility. And listening to everything you heard tonight, I'm sure you understand why this is not only important, but it's urgent. So let's get out there and do the work. But goodbye for now. I hope to see you in person on Thursday, June 2nd at the event. Keep on bidding and spread the word.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Tony, you were absolutely wonderful. And we're just so grateful to everyone who participated in this much needed conversation. We are excited about the work that's happening at NYTS, and we would not be able to do this work without you. So thank you again for coming tonight. I look forward to seeing each of you on June 2nd. Have an amazing night and keep fighting this fight. There's so much work that needs to be done, and you can be a part of that work. God bless you. I love you all. Have an amazing night, and we'll see you on June 2nd.